welcome to Building a U-Shaped Business with Georgie and Patty. There's Georgie.
This is episode 78.
Episode
Amazing.
78. That's awesome. And today we have the famous, amazing Bob Burg joining us in about 10 minutes. We thought what we would do before Bob gets online with us is talk a little bit about Bob's work, kind of bring people up to speed. I don't know if you've had an opportunity to read any of his books. Bob, of course, is the man behind. I like to say Bob invented Know, Like, and Trust. Bob is the man behind the famous quote about all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to people that they know, like, and trust. And that has been kind of a guiding principle for me since I started this business, since I first heard that quote, probably back in, I don't know, maybe years, still started with a 1 back when I first heard that, early 2000s at least. But Bob, what Bob teaches, what he talks about in his books is so much in alignment with what Georgie and I talk about. So I thought what we would do while we're waiting for Bob is talk about what Bob has written in his book, The Go-Giver. And hey, if you're in the chat, if you want, how many, have you read The Go-Giver? Are you familiar with any of Bob's work? Fantastic little books. He's got 3 books in the series that are Go-Giver books, and they're about, they each have, there's 5 laws, 5 secrets, 5 keys, but all based on his very people-centered, very relationship-centered work. And they're easy to read. They're written in a parable story format. And I found myself, as I'm reading the book, I'm like, this is really cool. It's like a combination of a novel with a business book. It was kind of like, oh, what's going to happen next? It's like, how's this going to go, right? So I wanted to share with you this morning the 5 laws of stratospheric success from The Go-Giver. And law number 1 is the law of value. Give more in value than you take in payment. This is one of those, anytime I talk to successful business owners and I ask them, what works for them in terms of sales and marketing, what makes their business successful, they always tell me that they get repeat business. Clients come back to them. And they get referral business, word of mouth, positive word of mouth. And I really believe that starts with this law, giving more in value than you take in payment. We often talk about pricing and value as being your client weighing 2 things. It's like, what are they getting and what's the stack of cash that they have to give up? So you want to give more value than what they're paying. And it's like, that's the first law from The Go-Giver. The second is the law of compensation, where he says your income is determined by how many people you serve and how well you serve them, which is one of the things he says in his bio, in his introduction, is that he's a fan of the free enterprise system, so that we are able to do what we're able to do. And the more value you give out, the more people you help, the more money you can make, the more income you can make. The third law from The Go-Giver is the law of influence. Your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. I think this is the really cool thing about everything that Bob teaches, that it's all about putting the other person first. And one of the things that we've noticed in working with our clients, but also, I've noticed this in myself, is that when we put the focus on ourselves, that's when all of the icky feelings come up. That's when it's, you know, you're afraid of how you're going to look, of what you're doing. And it's just, as soon as you start focusing on you and how uncomfortable you feel and how you don't, you know, it starts to get icky. But that can go away when you focus on the other person. Um, and who was it that said you could get anything you want out of life if you help enough other people get what they want? Do you remember who said that, Georgie?
That's true. I've heard the quote, but I can't remember who said
Zig Ziglar.
No, but Zig Ziglar. There we go. Thank you.
Yay! Nice job. Nice job, person. Excellent.
Yes.
So it's this. I mean, and this is the whole concept here of this go-giver. It's like, put the other person first. What can you do for them? How can you provide value for them? And it takes all the focus off yourself. And so the self-promotion, self-consciousness, all of that other stuff can evaporate when you remember to do that. Number 4, I think, is my favorite law out of the laws of stratospheric success, which is the law of authenticity. That the most valuable gift that you have to offer is yourself. And for anybody who is in a coaching or consulting or service kind of based business, often one of the first things they say to me is like, how do I set myself apart? How do I show that I'm different and I am unique? And authenticity is the key to that, because it's when you show up as who you are, there is only one you. And when you show up as who you are, who you really are, you automatically set yourself apart from other people. And then the 5th law is the law of receptivity, because you might be thinking, oh, it's all about the other person, all about the other person, all about the other person. How does that come back to me? And basically, it's remembering that the law of giving is only half of the system. In order to be able to successfully give to somebody, they need to be open to receiving. And so it's not about shutting yourself out of receiving, but making sure that you're open and receptive to having something come in for you. So those are the 5 laws of stratospheric success from Bob Burg's book, The Go-Giver.
So awesome. I think my favorite one is the putting other people first one. Because I think it does make it so much easier, like you were saying, right? When we're feeling scared and when we're like, I don't know if I can say this and I don't know how to do this. I think it eliminates a lot of that when we can remember to put the focus on other people. So good. So good. What else you got for us? To give people the intro into Bob before he gets here.
Well, I have his official intro, but I'm going to wait until he gets on the line, yes, to deliver his official intro, and he should be here in about 5 minutes.
Woo!
So, do we have any?
I'm curious.
Go ahead.
Yep, go ahead. I was going to say, I'm curious for those who are listening, of those 5 laws that Patty read, which one do you most resonate with, or which one would be your favorite that you heard there? I think they're all really good. And I think, like you say, it so resonates with how we believe in doing business. It really is about relationships and putting other people first and giving value, for sure. I think that's probably, and I love his books because they're also easy to read and they're like little stories, and, kind of reminds me of, Robin Sharma writes that way too, right? Within kind of that parable format. Mm-hmm. So here was someone, I like them all, and I like number 4 a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, this is one of the things about being able to do business like globally, worldwide, on the internet. It's, on the one hand, it's like, oh, you can reach anybody in the world. And on the other hand, it's kind of like, and you are competing with everybody in the world who does what you do. And it can really feel like there are a lot of people out there that are doing what you do. And you can start to wonder, so, how do I differentiate myself? And you know, the authenticity one is just so easy in a way, and also hard, because then you have to show up as yourself and be you, and all of that, and that can have its own challenges. But,
Mm-hmm. Yes, they do all work together. Someone's made a comment that yes, they absolutely all very much so work together. Yeah, isn't it interesting how showing up as just who we are is one of the hardest things to do, and really it should be the easiest because it's us, and yet can be one of the most challenging things to do. It's one of those and things, I'm sure, in there somewhere. Most definitely. But yeah, I think if we can only remember to keep life simple. It's the simple things. We want to just overcomplicate things and make things harder than they have to be. And it's often just the simplest, most honest things can make the biggest difference. Here we go. The authenticity is powerful, but like you said, both easy and hard. I'm working on that challenge a lot right now. Yeah, it's so true. Law number 5, reciprocity. Giving complimentary sessions and then people don't sign up can feel like we give and give. In fact, in every interaction, whether people sign up or not to work with me, I can be grateful if I am open to receiving gifts besides money. I think sometimes that comes down to also is the intention in our, complimentary sessions and those things like that. Like, I think if you are really in that session there to give value, right? Going back to kind of, I think that was law number 1, right? Giving value. Like I'm really there to offer value to people.
Cheers here.
Woo! Can I just say, you guys, look at that amazing bookshelf. Like, that is pretty awesome. But yeah, it's I think it's challenging too when you're going in sometimes to the sessions, because we want them to sign up, right? We kind of do have this little expectation back there that I want them to sign up for something. So it can be, again, one of those challenging things to let that go and just be present to offer value to the person in front of us and not be attached to the outcome. Patty's talked about this before, about what are the things we can control. We can control value. So good. Good morning.
Hi.
I don't know. How are you?
I'm good. How about you all?
We are very well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
We are,
thank you for having me.
All very excited to chat with you this morning for sure. And we love your bookshelf.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I always say to people, my house is comprised of books with some scattered furniture.
Nice. So you are live on our U-shaped business with Georgie and Patty, and our crew is here as well. So we've been talking a bit before you got here about the Go Giver and the book, and we were just kind of talking about the 5 laws that you have in there.
So let me ask you a question. Can I excuse myself for like 45 seconds and I'll be right back? I just wanted to make sure I was on in the,
Yes, absolutely. Okay.
Excellent. Well, while Bob has excused himself for 45 seconds, how about I read his introduction?
I think that's probably a good thing. I was just going to see, quickly go through the chat. Yes, money isn't the only thing we can receive. Don't be attached to the outcome. Give value. Yes. All right. I'm
going to read the official introduction to Bob's chair here. Bob Burg is a sought-after speaker at company leadership and sales conferences, sharing the platform with everyone from today's business leaders and broadcast personalities to even a former U.S. president. Bob is the author of a number of books on sales, marketing, and influence, with total book sales of well over 1 million copies. His book, The Go Giver, co-authored With John David Mann itself has sold over 950,000 copies and has been translated into 28 languages. His and John's newest parable in the Go Giver series is the Go Giver Influencer. Bob is an advocate, supporter, and defender of the free enterprise system, believing that the amount of money one makes is directly proportional to how many people they serve. He is also an unapologetic animal fanatic and is a past member of the board of directors of Furry Friends Adoption Clinic and Ranch in his hometown of Jupiter, Florida. Welcome, Bob!
Thank you so much for having me.
Yay! We get excited here pretty easily, so you might get a lot of that while you're here. So good. So just to give you a bit of a background of a lot of the people that are probably listening to us right now, is we really believe in what we call like a U-shaped business. So really being able to build a business that works for who you are, what you believe, and of course makes money and has some kind of purpose behind it, because we believe in doing good things in the world. Which, through reading your books, I think you fit in that category too, that's my assumptions of that. So a lot of what we like to do here as well when we have people come on is we really want to get to know kind of the person behind the business, like how did you do what you do, and those kinds of things. So we'll have some of those questions thrown in as well, which we hope you're okay with.
Sure.
As we do this. Awesome.
Anything goes. I will do my best to answer.
Excellent.
Excellent. Excellent.
Go right to the questions in the secret envelope, George.
Perfect. Exactly where we'll start. Exactly. Let me see. So then the first question I have for you is, when you started your business, did you actually visualize it to the end that you have now? Or was it something that just happened? So my interpretation, like you've sold, over 1 million books. You have this philosophy that's really, I would say, taken off. You've got a lot of supporters behind that. So when you first started doing what you're doing in your business, did you have that end in mind?
Well, I started speaking over 30 years ago. And yeah, I mean, I had in mind that I was going to be very successful at the business. I was going to enjoy myself and, and so sure. But, like anything, there's lots of ups and downs. There's many more mistakes than there are victories. You just hope the victories, by the size of them or the scope or the number of them are able to overwhelm the mistakes, so sure. I mean, I think it's like anything else, but yeah, I envision the success. I wouldn't go into anything without, really envisioning a great outcome. So sure, no question about that.
Yeah. Awesome. And so, did you have any sort of like rituals or routines about that? Like you hear a lot of people now where like they've got their vision board, they're writing their things. They really, I'm going to sell 1 million copies. I'm going to sell 1 million copies. Like, did you do any of that kind of stuff?
I never did the vision board like you hear, and I probably should have. I mean, obviously it's worked for so many great people. And yeah, I mean, it's wonderful. It wasn't something I did. I wrote down my goals, of course, and what I was looking to accomplish, and I continually visualize them in my mind. But I think a vision board would be a great idea to have. I just, I never took the time to do that. But sure, always, had in mind what I wanted to do, which again, doesn't mean I accomplished all the individual goals that I set out for. But yeah, always held the vision clearly, and some things exceeded my expectations and other things didn't live up to my expectations. So again, I think life is life, and it's good to be, I always say have positive expectation. Some people say, well, do things without expecting, the result. No, I always expect to have great results. But what I focus on is not being attached to the results. That's important, because attachment is sort of like an addiction. You need the thing in order to be happy, in order to have peace of mind. But here's the challenge: when you're attached or addicted to something, even when you get that thing, when you accomplish that goal, if you're attached or addicted, you're still not happy. Because by the very nature of an addiction or an attachment, it's never enough. and you either fear losing it, you fear what's going to happen next. So what you want to do, and I first learned this from the book Handbook to Higher Consciousness by Kenneth Keyes Jr., have preferences as opposed to attachments. He called them addictions. I call them attachments. But have preferences. Prefer it? Sure, absolutely. Expect it? Absolutely. Why wouldn't you have positive expectation? Just don't be attached to the result.
Exactly. And I think that's part of that's where that kind of that almost that flexibility too of how it gets there. Because I think Patty and I were talking about this the other day too, right? You can get so boxed into your focus of how this has to happen.
Right.
And then you lose sight of opportunities and things that might come in for you.
Great point. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's so true. Very cool. Very cool. Love that. So when we think about you, we kind of think of you almost as a little bit of...
I mean, you do think about me? You think about me like when I'm there right in front of you? I mean, that's amazing because I can't believe anybody.
I do. You can know that I probably think about you daily because I really love your Instagram feed and your Twitter thing. So yeah, you can pretty much know that every day you're in my mind.
Nice to know someone.
Yeah, you can know that I'm thinking about you daily. And when I think about your work, I almost think of it as a little bit against the grain to some of the traditional advice that's out there and what people say you should do or have to do. And, you know, if you can't just give people so much value because then you're going to be a doormat and people will walk all over you. It's always got to be about, you know, closing the sale and making the money and that kind of thing. And I see you as kind of against that point of view, a little bit of an outlier, but yet you stand so strong in what you believe, you know? And so I'm just wondering, you know, where do you find that inside yourself to have the courage, for lack of a better word, to hold that position and to have held it for so long? And my guess is probably, like you say, you started 30 years ago. It was probably maybe even a little more like, what is that guy saying? That's not how we do it. So where does that come from within you?
Well, okay. So, I mean, those are great questions. And I think it really is very worthwhile going deep into those, because when we say counterintuitive, yeah, but only because the way most of us have been taught is not the most effective way. It's not the most productive way. So when you see people who are pushy and obnoxious and their focus is totally on what they can get from that really, are those the most successful people? And I'm even talking financially. Are they generally speaking the most financially? No, they may have some very, very quick successes or it's not sustainable. And those kinds of people, even when they do have a long-term type of success, they are working awfully hard at it. You've got to, because you have no one on your side. You have no one who really cares about you. You have no one who really sees you as being of immense value in their life. So it's always a one at a time type of thing. Can you do it that way? Of course. But boy, it's tough. And it doesn't feel good for the soul. And it's generally speaking, not very profitable in any way you want to define profit. Okay. When you really seek out what successful people do, what you find is their focus is on providing the marketplace. And a marketplace is simply a group of individuals, okay, is providing others with value. I define value as the relative worth or desirability of a thing to the end user or beholder. In other words, what is it about this thing, whether it's a product, service, concept, idea, information, friendship, what have you, that brings so much value or worth, right, value to another human being that they will willingly either exchange their money for it, exchange their time, or their, what have you. They want to be. And so when we do that, and that's why we say with the Go-Giver that the basic premise is simply shifting your focus. And this is really what it is, shifting your focus from getting to giving. And when we say giving in this context, we simply mean constantly and consistently providing immense value to others, understanding that doing so is not only a more pleasant way of living life and conducting business, it's the most financially profitable way as well. But here's the thing. It's not for some magical, mystical, woo-woo type of reasons, okay? It's very logical. It's very rational. When you're the, and of course, the two of you teach this, so you know this. I'm preaching to the choir. But when you are able to move from an I focus or me focus to an other focus, right? Looking to make other lives better, more fulfilling, happier, whatever it happens to be, people feel good about you. People want to get to know you. They like you. They trust you. They want to be in relationship with you. They want to do business with you, refer you to others. So what I really, by being counterintuitive, I'm really just bringing to the marketplace, if you will, something that has been proven since time immemorial to work. I mean, in the book, The Go-Giver, any of the books, none of the principles are things that John David Mann, my great co-author, none of these things are things we made up or invented, so we don't take credit for that. We put them in story form and so forth. And of course, him being such a great writer that he was able to really make that sing, but there's nothing original in there. So, I mean, it was a matter of when I started doing this, simply sharing things that I knew worked. Again, not because I invented it, but because they had been proven to work. Then it was just a matter of making a decision to communicate the message.
Mm-hmm. So good. Why do you think it's so challenging for people to make that shift to really focusing on the other person? Because I see this a lot of times with our clients, when they get really stuck in that, fear of what I'm going to say and how am I going to look, and all of those kind of insecurities start bubbling up. It's challenging to make the shift into, let me just take everything off of me and put it on the person in front of me, because I know when that happens, those things fall away. Mm-hmm. But it seems to be challenging for people to make that shift, especially in the moment.
Well, I think there are a couple of reasons.
So what would be your advice on that, or?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't go. I think we had a internet thing where it cut out for a second, and I thought you would finish up. My apologies for interrupting. I think there are a couple of reasons. Okay, one is simply human nature. Okay, it's very difficult. We're I focused. Okay, and it's very difficult to not, talk about our product that we're proud of, or tell you why we're the best one who can do this for you, or when we feel a little bit of pressure to kind of go into the blah 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 type of thing. So that's human nature, and that's something that can be learned, to not to deny our human nature or to fight it, but to kind of work within it and kind of put it aside. And that's why I often say to people, don't deny your self-interest. You are self-interested. You're a human being. I'm self-interested too. I mean, it's how we've been able to last for, millions of years, or however many years it's been. But what we do need to do is suspend that self-interest. We need to put it aside. And we need to understand that it's only to the, remember, nobody is buying from you because you have a quota to meet. They're not buying from you because you need the money, or even because you're a really nice person who believes in what you do. They're buying from you only because they believe they will be better off by doing so than by not doing so. And in a free market-based economy, which is what we operate from, and when I say free market, I simply mean no one is forced to buy from anyone else, okay? So in that type of system, buying from you for their reasons is the only reason they should buy from you or from me or from anyone else. But that's good news, because that means that if you really understand that you will really, know that it's only by placing your foot, taking it off yourself, placing your interest totally on them and their needs, their wants, their desires, which is what selling is. Discovering what the other person needs, wants, or desires, and helping them to get it. Okay, so to the degree you can do that, that's the degree you're creating that context for that person to feel good about you, to know you, like you, trust you, and buy. So the first is understanding why that is in our best interest. See, it's actually in our best interest to place the other person's interest before our own. Okay. Now, the other reason why people might find it difficult to make the shift, if they do, I mean, some people make the shift very easily as soon as they understand the benefit of doing so. Okay. But one reason is, what have they been taught? Look at the, you know, the many times as a matter of upbringing, environment, schooling, news media, television shows, movies. What are the messages we receive from the world around us? That business people are bad, that it's the pushy people who make all the money, and people who get wealthy do it on the backs of others, and business is hard. No, there's lots of people in the world. So of course you've got people, but the message we get is so negative in terms of money, prosperity, success, and all those things that people, you know, intuitively or unconsciously feel that if they're gonna, that, you know, the way to do it is by being that person, and they don't even want to be. And I think that's one reason why the success of the Go-Giver, of the book, and why it happened so fast, was simply because, you know, most people are good people. There's lots of bad people in the world. I'm not any Pollyanna. I mean, this world is filled with different people, but most people are decent people. And I think most people who start a business, especially the people who, you know, who the two of you work with, okay, are doing it because they have a sense of purpose. They want to do what they enjoy. They want to do what's congruent with their values and what they believe is going to help others, okay? They have a purpose. So when those people, you know, read the book originally, and this is when it first came out years ago, it was like, oh, wow. You mean I can be a really good person who wants to bring immense value to others and really do well and also make a lot of money? Yeah, and the people who first adopted the book, who adapted it, were the people who were already very successful, living their lives according to these principles long before they read the book. And they started, you know, because I know we got lots of emails saying, this is what I've been trying to tell people. It's how I built my fortune, and right? We just put it in book form.
Yeah, and you put it in a book form that's so easy to read. Like I love the parable style. You know, the story. I love it. And I mean, and I felt very much the same way when I was reading. I'm like, oh, they're speaking my language. Like, just, you know, I love it so much. So speaking of John, how did you guys come together? Like, how did that collaboration kind of start?
Yeah, he was editor-in-chief of a magazine I used to write for. And I wrote monthly columns. And so he would always email back. We had never met in person at that time, but we knew each other just through our emails. Every month he would send it back. And he was always, first of all, he was brilliant and he always did such a great job, but he was always so polite and so respectful and humble in the way that, you know, because as the editor, you know, theoretically you could just cut out whatever you want, but he'd always send it back to me. He'd say, I did this here, I changed this here, I moved this word here. Is it okay? Which I always thought was very courteous, very nice of him to do. And the running joke was every month I just, you know, kind of send back the same email saying, not only is it okay, you write my stuff better than I write my stuff. And so when I come up with the idea for the book, he was the only one I wanted to be the co-author and lead writer for it. Now, back then, very few people really knew of his brilliance. Now he's like the co-author and ghostwriter of choice when a publisher has a book they want to write, and it's a celebrity or a big business person, but they don't, you know, they need a writer. John's the one who they go to. But back then, very few people knew of John's brilliance. Fortunately, I was one of them who did. So I had asked him if he, you know, would do this. He really wasn't sure because he was still very busy. And so he and his fiance, well, now his wife, they've been married, gosh, I think about 12 years now, and they're just a wonderful, wonderful couple. But back then they were fiancés, and they were visiting her mom across the state in Tampa, and they actually drove over 4 hours to have dinner with me one night, and we had about a 3-hour dinner discussing the idea of the book, what we wanted to do with it, and so forth. And he still wasn't sure, but then he, you know, he said to me, he called me on the phone one day, he said, Bob, I just spoke with my higher power, that's Anna, his fiance, and and she said, yeah, this is a good idea. So I agree. And so that was it. And we wrote it in only a few months, but it took us a year and about 25 rejections from publishers before we finally found our perfect publishing partner, which was Portfolio, which is a division of Penguin Random House.
That's awesome. It's funny, you know, I often look at a lot of the books that I have, and Penguin Random House seems to be my publisher of choice. I'm like, wow, they publish like all the books I love. Like, they do a really great job of getting amazing authors.
They really do. Well, I don't say amazing, but I mean, they're just a great publishing partner for us. You know, they've been fantastic.
And you know, just as a side note with Penguin, I used to have a physical space here in New West, and one of the things I really wanted to do was I wanted to have a bookstore. And I'm like, I have no idea even how to have a bookstore. And that's who I called. I'm like, this is what I want to do. I'm just a little nothing, and I don't know how to do anything. And they're like, okay, here's what you can do. And they were so fantastic. And they're like, we can set you up as like, we have this thing called an independent seller. I'm like, okay, we'll send you the thing, we'll get you all set up. And that's how I brought books into my little space. So they were, wow. I always look at people like that, right, of being so fabulous when people who don't know and they reach out to someone and they're like, I need some help. And they were like, yeah, we can help you. Here's what you need, you know, before even, you know, wanting to do a contract with them or anything like that, which, so yeah, I think that's another reason I have a little soft spot for them too.
That's a nice story. That's really nice.
Which is good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what keeps you motivated? Like, you've got to have days where you're like, man, I gotta get up and do this again. Like, you must be human, I'm assuming.
I say oi a lot, yeah. You know, we all have days. We're all humans. We all have those days. But I mean, I think what gets me up and excited is I just love what I do. You know, I get to do something that I love. I work with people I love, and you know, I think if you kind of are fortunate enough to be in a business like that, you really, you know, very lucky and have a lot to be grateful for.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't really feel like work, right? It's just like, I get paid to do this.
Like, I've often felt like that. I've often felt like that. Like, wow, you know, I get paid for doing this, you know, and it's, right. You know, but that's kind of what you want to have, because remember, you know, those old tapes we get are, work's not supposed to be fun. Fun is what you do when you're not working. Oh, you know. And that's a reality for many people, and I my heart breaks, you know, for that, you know, for them, if that's, but yeah, you know, I'm a big believer that you want to have fun doing what you're doing. You want to really enjoy it, have a good feeling about it. Doesn't mean it's not work. I mean, there's also, and again, business is business, and there's times it's great, and there's times it's not great, right? But that's life. But yeah, when you are there because you really want to be, because you like what you do, you love what you do, it's very fortunate.
Yeah, it's so good. People often ask what we do for fun, and Patty will often say, well, I work. Yeah. You know, because you love, like, there's just so much passion and love. It's like, it's kind of like that's what we do. Is there an issue with that? So it's so cool. We actually had one of the people in our community write in, and they wanted to know, what's your superpower? So when you think about your secret to success, what would you say your superpower is? And it's funny, I was talking to this person because they were like, and when you ask him, tell him to, he's like, because he seems like kind of a humble guy, and often really successful people are kind of humble. So tell him to take off his humble hat and just really say, you know, really, what makes you awesome? What is your superpower?
That's very nice. It's very kind. If I have a superpower, I'm not sure it's not like one secret that got me to a place, but it's something that's added to my effectiveness. And that is, I have a very natural, very highly attuned sense of empathy, which I think is one reason why I'm probably a good teacher and a good, you know, instructor, or, you know, communicator and so forth, because I really kind of have a way of being able to feel where that other person's coming from. It doesn't mean I know how they feel, because how can you know how someone feels if you're not them? But I have the understanding of the general feeling. You know, I can tap into confusion and pain and angst and so forth, and work with a person along that way. So I think that has a lot to do with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, you know, when people can tap into being really empathetic, I think that's I think it's a necessary skill, really, in business.
I think empathy is the most important business skill, the most important people skill, the most important life skill, because it's really, you know, I mean, who are we dealing with? We're dealing with other people. And we have to have an understanding of human nature, and which means other people's nature and our own nature, right? And that's why I think emotional intelligence has gotten so big over the years now, rightly so, because, you know, people have seen and leaders have seen that, you know, you can get to a certain place just through talent and through hard work and energy. You can get to a certain level of success. But as Marshall Goldberg, I don't know if you ever read his book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. It's such a brilliant book. But as he said, you know, you can get to a certain point that way, but that isn't what's going to get you to the next level. And often what got you to that first level, you got there despite certain weaknesses, not because of those weaknesses, which is easy to confuse for strengths, because as human beings, we want to see that correlation, and we want to feel that correlation equals causation, but it doesn't necessarily, right? And so that's why I thought what he said was so brilliant. I think people skills are really the difference maker, and a big part of people skills is empathy, and that's what makes it genuine, and that's what makes it authentic, and that's what makes a person very effective, and elicits that trust.
So true. I love that. I'm aware of our time as well. And I just wanted to, it's funny, Patty and I both did this when we watched your 4-part sales course, which I think is amazing. And I'm gonna put the link for it for everybody, because I think anyone in business should actually go and watch that, because it's so great. And both of us actually screenshotted you on your video, and we're making your books bigger. So what books is he reading? What books is he reading on your shelves back there? You know, and it seems like you read a really diverse selection of books, you know, like really different opinions, different kind of things.
Oh, yeah.
How has that impacted your work?
Well, you know, I read people who I don't agree with.
Yes.
You know, and when it comes to influence, when it comes to persuasion, when it comes to, you know, unless you can understand that other person's point of view, their reasoning behind their thoughts and actions, which doesn't mean you have to agree with it, but you understand it, okay? Unless you do, you really cannot tap into, again, that empathetic, you know, that empathy. You can't understand where they're coming from. You know, in the United States, with the two political parties throughout the years, they've always been at odds, okay? But it used to be, you know, regardless of which party you were on, whether you were a Republican, a Democrat, you know, left or right, it was always, I'm right, you're wrong. Now, that's not ideal, okay, as far as influence, engagement, and persuasion. It's not ideal, but it's manageable. It's doable, because if you believe you're right and the other person's wrong, you'll still engage. You'll reach out. You'll try to persuade them that you're right, they're wrong. You know, what have you. Again, not really effective, but it's doable. Now it's no longer I'm right, you're wrong. It's I'm right, you're evil. And once you think of the other person as having evil intent, not, oh, you're wrong, naive, off base, but I know you have good intent. You still want good things for people. You know, but once you think you're evil, you won't engage. Why would you engage evil? Evil is incorrigible. They're unchangeable. There's no, and that's what it's really come to. And few people will few people will look at that other person's side or read that other person's tweet or post or watch them other than to just so they can say, oh, you're wrong because of this or they're wrong because of that. No, don't do that. Look at why they're thinking what they're thinking. Play your own devil's advocate and ask, could they be right? Again, that doesn't mean you have to lose your mind no, but try to understand. And so, I can only learn really when I can learn a little from the people I agree with. I can learn a lot, but I can learn a whole lot from people I don't agree with in terms of even better understanding my argument.
So true. It's so good. So as we're nearing the end of our time with you, because I do want to be respectful because I know you've got lots on the go, what would be kind of the one last thing that you would like to leave our people with in helping them kind of create their U-shaped business, a business that's authentic to them, doing their work in the world, moving forward? What's kind of one last thing you'd like to leave them with?
Well, always continue doing what you love. It's just so important. Now, it's interesting that, there's a saying, and like many good sayings, it's incomplete. And that saying is, do what you love and you'll never have to work another day in your life, or do what you love and the money will follow. It's good, but it's incomplete. It's partly true. Okay. You do what you love. Okay. So long as you're also good at it or can learn those skills and that you have a market who will pay you for it. Now, it might be a market you create, or it might be one that's already there that you tap into. Fine. But if you can love what you do and be great at it, but if no one's going to pay you, it's a hobby. And by all means, hobbies are great. I recommend everyone have one, but that's different from a successful, business. So I think you have to have all three. Okay. You love what you do, you're good at it, and you have a market for it. But, I really, one of the most important things I ever learned was a couple of years after I'd been in sales. This is, long before I was speaking for a living, and I was selling a product, a great product, but I was in a real sales slump. And I think my focus, the more I panicked because I was in such a slump, the more I started really, focusing on myself, instead of the other person. And I remember that one of the older guys at the company where I worked, he wasn't in sales even. He was in a I think the engineering department or something. I don't know, but he was one of these guys. He didn't say much, but whenever he did say something, it was always profound, right? So he said, I remember him saying to me, Burg, he was a last name kind of guy. He said, Burg, can I give you some advice? And I said, sure, please do. I need it. And he said, if you want to make a lot of money in sales, he could have said in business, either way, same thing. If he said, if you want to make a lot of money in sales, he said, don't have making money as your target. Your target is serving others. Now, when you hit the target, he said, you'll get a reward. And that reward will come in the form of money. And you can do with that money whatever you choose. But never forget, he said, the money is simply the reward for hitting the target. It ain't the target itself. Your target is serving others. And that's when it really hit me that great salesmanship is never about the salesperson. A great salesmanship is never about the product or service itself, as important as those are, of course. Great salesmanship is always about the other person. It's about that person's life who you choose to touch through your product or service and everything else you bring to the table. It's about that person's life being better as a result of knowing you and having you in their life. And that's why John David Mann and I say that money is simply an echo of value. It's the thunder, if you will, to values lightning, which means the focus, that shift in focus, right? The focus must be on bringing immense value to them. The money you receive is simply a natural result of the value you've provided.
So good. Thank you so much for being here with us, for sharing your knowledge, your wisdom, a little bit about you. I know I've seen some comments in the chat where people are going to buy your books now, which is great. We will put links on how people can follow you, connect with you, go to your website. Yeah, I encourage everyone to just consume his information, because I really believe it. And I really, really do believe that when you adopt his principles and take action in that way, you're going to be more successful, and it's just going to help you as a human being, and make I think our whole world a little bit better when we show up in that way of really putting other people first, caring about other people, having that empathy. So I just see you as a real world changer. So thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you. That's very nice. I appreciate that a lot. That means a lot to me. Thanks,
Awesome.
everybody, for being on the call.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Appreciate the value you bring to our world.
Yeah, my pleasure. Have a great day, everyone.
You too.
You too. Okay. Bye-bye. All right. How was that?
I'm going to dig up the links here.
Oh yes, find the links on there.
Yes.
Bob has a lot of really great free resources on his site. Like I say, I really, anyone that, which I think anyone in business, we are all in sales, his free 4-part course on his site is really good. I've watched the whole thing, and I really, like I say, he comes from this approach of putting other people first, giving value. It's really
I'm just popping the link into the chat right now. thegogiver.com.
And then he has, I don't know if Burg.com goes to the same site or not.
I don't know that question, but the link to the 4-part course is right on this page.
Oh, perfect.
Sure.
Then it probably does.
Plus
awesome.
all of his books, which are fantastic. Yes,
they're so good and so easy to read, and they're short little books, so it won't take you long to read them. Yeah, it's really good. And we love staying connected with people too, so as you read them and go through his stuff, we'd love to hear how, even what you heard today, what are you going to take, what are you going to put into action, how are you going to use this information, because I think information is really great, and we can all sit here today and we can feel inspired and warm and fuzzy and think about just how awesome this was. But really, what are you going to take from what Bob said today and use that in your life, in your business, in your interactions with other people? Like, I would encourage you to kind of think about that right now and go, okay, yeah, when I leave this call today, here's one thing I can implement today. Maybe I'm going to practice being a little more empathetic, or actually seeking out someone who has the polar opposite opinion or view that I have, and see what I can learn. Maybe I'm going to really see how often I can put that other person first, step out of myself, or even just notice, when am I kind of in my sort of selfish state, which I think we're all in a lot of the time. Like I said, it's natural human behavior. But when I recognize that fear that's coming up and be like, can I talk to this person? Is it just me being afraid because of my own insecurities? And how can I shift that a little bit to just move my focus to the other person and notice what a difference that it makes? So I kind of do some little experiments with some of this stuff, because until you put it into action for yourself, it's really just nice information to hear. But if you want it to make a difference, we need to do something with it. So that's great. Oh, I like this. I'm going to put each of the laws from the Go-Giver into my daily affirmations. 1 law for each of the next 5 weeks. Great idea. Yeah, I like the breaking it down of things. And let me take 1 law and see how can I use that this week and in my interactions. That's really great.
I think that's one of the things I like the best about what he has to say, is that they're principles. You can apply them to whatever it is that you're doing. It's kind of, it's when you think about it, like when you read the book, and there's a question here about, where to start with the Go-Giver books. Like, I would go with the one that's the Go-Giver. I think that's one with the red, red cover. start there, as in terms of the most relevant to the people who are here, is to start there. It also kind of gives you a sense of, I read that one, I'm like, okay, I'm getting the other ones because I just loved how it was written so much. But very simple, like they're simple ideas, and I just love how he puts that across. It's like, it's simple ideas. It's not totally complicated. It's actually, it's not rocket science, So yeah.
So good. So good. Well, should we wrap it up?
We should wrap it up. We
On
got
that note?
On that note, have a fantastic week.
On
We'll
that
be
note.
back here next week, same bat time, same bat channel, for a surprise episode of Building a U-Shaped Business.
Yes. Have an amazing week. We can all go be go-givers this week, and that sounds like a really good idea to me.
It does. It sounds like a great way to approach the rest of this week and into next week. And have a good one.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.